up, my fight fans? So, I want to ask you guys something, and pretty much I do deeply feel that all of us will agree to this answer, and all of us would agree to be on the same page. But first, let me ask the question: was 2022 a good year or a bad year for boxing? Let me wait. Yes, I agree with what all of you just said. It was a terrible year for boxing. Very terrible. Good God. I mean, it's just, I don't know what's been going on. Boxing has definitely been one of my first love sports. Like, I was never really deeply into sports growing up. Sports was always around my house. But the sport that literally paved the way, literally the one that pretty much got me into all the sports now in general, was boxing. I grew up in the De La Hoya, Trinidad, Shane Mosley era. I grew up watching these guys. I grew up watching everybody fight everybody. I grew up in the Lennox Lewis, Tyson Holyfield area. I grew up in the Manny Pacquiao, Marquez, Morales, Barrera era. Huh. I grew up in these guys. I grew up these, like, literally HBO was the shit for boxing. Everyone remembers that the Friday night fights and all this stuff. There was just so much back in those days. I mean, even before my time, when you had the earlier Tyson fights and the earlier Holyfield fights, and then of course we had the Four Kings with Leonard, Duran, Hearns, and Hagler. Boxing has just been such a dominant sport for so many years. Maybe once in a great while you'll have a kind of like a slow year, but still was very, very relatively good. This year was just, it was so bad. It was by far one of the worst years for boxing. We could go debate all day about, like, no, that was the fight of the year. That was the fight of the year. No, this fighter should be fighter of the year. This fighter should be fighter of the year. The rounds, everything, all of it all together. We could go back and forth. No, he was better. No, this person was better. This person was better. It all of it together was just, it really, really stunk. I think the ones that really stand out the most was the females. Female boxing really took off. With Shields, with Amanda Serrano, with Katie Taylor, with Sinisa Estrada. These girls really, really made an impact this year in boxing. With all the pros, it really felt like something was missing. It really felt like we missed something in this year. And you know what was sad? That this year in 2022, one of the highlights, and one of the most talked about, and the one of the most looking forward to, was Jake Paul, a YouTuber, not a guy that wasn't even a big boxer, a guy who's not a boxer, a guy who's never really been doing anything for boxing in the earlier years, or all his life. He just recently came into the sport just a couple of years ago, and has already made a bigger impact than most of these professionals. I go up to some guy, some of the fans out there, or possibly any other relatively unknown guy that doesn't even watch boxing. I guarantee they're going to hear more about Jake Paul than more than 70% of the roster in boxing. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot, and it's because these fighters, the politics, the promoters, the different televised networks. There's so many, so freaking many. I could go on all day about what is going on with boxing and why the boxing is dying. And it is dying because there's just way too much. There isn't one destination where we can really watch it. You have the ESPN Plus, you have the DAZNs, you have the Showtimes, you have the PBCs. You have all these different other networks. Then, of course, you have these different promoters. And then you have everybody wanting to be their own promoter, be their own boss. And then you have this person, I don't want to fight US wrestlers for this much money or that much money. I want this ring. I want that ring. I want this kind of gloves. I want this and that, this and that. It's just left and right. It's just so much politics. It really is. I'm not sure what's more political when it comes to, like, the government and the White House, and when it comes to the presidents, and when it comes to all this other stuff, or boxing. I think boxing takes it over by a long shot. Long shot. There are so many fights that we did not get in 2022. So many. It is disgusting. We did not get our Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua, our Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis, our big one, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. You know, we didn't get none of these fights that we really, really, really wanted to see. You know, and it's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. And I know there's probably some that we had are, of course, uh, unfortunate events that took place. Like we did want to see Lomachenko fight, we did want to see Usyk fight a little bit differently, but unfortunately, you know what's going on in the Ukraine, we already know that was a little unfortunate, sure. But then there's also all this political game. These guys who are healthy, these guys who are young, these guys who have everything ready to go for, everything ready to gain, and it just feels like some of these fighters are just too damn afraid to lose. They're not afraid to fight anybody. I'm not saying any fighter is afraid to fight anybody. They all want to get in the ring, but it just almost feels like they just do not want to lose to that opponent, or they do not want to go in there for that kind of much money. You know, it's like, or if someone wants to dictate, well, you just deserve this, well, you deserve that. Like, no, 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 no. You know, you're both undefeated. You're both on the prime. You're both ready to go. You're both stars. Let's just make the money. And you know, a freaking 60-40 split, a 45-55 split, a 50-50 split. It's really like all this is just, oh my God, it is just so frustrating, guys. It is so frustrating what we've seen with boxing. You know, Canelo tried to do his best. He did go up and go in there with the, Bivol, and of course a very controversial decision, but still nonetheless, Bivol got the win, got the nod. And then we saw that part 3 of Triple G versus Canelo. It was a little too late. It was a little too late, and the fight didn't really live up to the hype. Didn't live up to the first two. And of course, why? Because it was a little bit past that time. It was just like, you know, I believe that first fight was around 2016, 2017. Then relatively very sooner, much sooner, right after that was Canelo and Triple G Part 2. So it could have happened maybe a year or two ago, but you know, at the end of the day, it did happen. Still, Canelo was relatively active, you know, and he still was able to get the job done, and he was still able to fight, regardless win, lose, or draw. That's saying more than some of these other fighters who were relatively inactive and relatively didn't go against higher competition like we would have liked them to. You know, Gervonta Davis is a big star coming up and moving in the rankings, but again, you can't tell me who has he really fought in the top 5 and within the lightweight division. Nobody. You know, Ryan Garcia, he's making his way through. He's finally coming back. He had a lot of different things going on. But here we go. I wanted to see him against Gervonta Davis or against a Teofimo Lopez, somewhere around that time, that frame. We didn't really get that either. You know, both Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, we can talk all day. I could do a freaking 2-3 hour podcast alone talking about these two guys. And again, what do we get from them? Nothing. It's really disgusting to see where boxing has gone. Really is. It really is. Very sad. You know, I'm sure for the youth that's watching, that's barely getting into boxing, they're like, why am I going to watch this? Yeah, really? Like, this is not, and I feel bad for them because they missed out on all those really great fights that we grew up seeing. The Shane Mosley versus Oscar De La Hoya fights, the Arturo Gatti versus Mickey Wards, the Manny Pacquiao and Morales Pereira and Marquez trilogy, or part 4 or part 2, whatever you want to call them. They had multiple fights with each other. You know, they're all those great wars. Even the stylistically fight. You know, even Floyd Mayweather in his younger days when he fought Diego Corrales and the destruction that he did with Arturo Gatti. Fights like that, we grew up watching so much great action-packed fights. And even if you're a fan of the art of boxing, you know, you remember a good fighter named Winky Wright, and of course Floyd Mayweather being a very good fighter himself, a very good boxer, I should say. And then, of course, who can forget about Miguel Cotto? You know, even honestly, I'm a big fan, a huge fan of Alvarez. And it feels like a lot, some of it has hit, he's been dying down just a little bit too. I remember some of the action fights and those knockouts that he used to have, and it almost feels like he's kind of playing it safe too, just a little bit. And it's just like, what is going on, guys? This is not what we grew up with. You know, Tyson Fury, big fan of him too, but look at, again, what do we get from that? We got Tyson Fury versus Dillian White. I mean, okay, I guess, sure. And then, of course, a part 3, a very much unnecessary part 3 with Derek Chisora. You know, we already saw that fight twice. We don't need to see it a third time just to see you do it again a third time. So it's very disappointing to see that, where I really wish, part of me wishes that we could see negotiations when it comes to boxing live, so we know who's to blame, so we know who's holding back, so we know, like, hey, you know, let's do negotiations live. Let's see what you're willing to do. Let's see who's the one that really doesn't really want to fight. You know, let's see who's the one that's trying to ask for so much. Because let's face facts, you can actually ask your way out of a fight. You can honestly say, like, well, I'm only going to fight you if you agree to 90 my way, 10% your way. Of course, no one's really going to agree to that. So let's not pretend like you're trying to say, well, I said I would fight him. No, you're not. You're just trying to talk your way out of it. You're trying to make sure that you're giving him an answer that he's going to say no to just so you can look good. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to try to make it an even split because it's still a business at the end of the day. So it's just bad. And I really hope 2023 is going to be a much better year for boxing. I hope and pray, guys. I hope and pray. It's on. It's slowly deteriorating. It's slowly dying. It is slowly going down the drain. I hope somewhere around these guys, because the only people that can save boxing is the boxers. They're the ones that can save the sport. They're the ones that can give the fans the fights that we want to see. They're the ones that can make it very entertaining for us and make it very must-see TV for us. Because we can't save it. We can be there. We could buy the tickets. We could go to the events. We could watch it on TV. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to give us something worth watching, we're not going to watch no more. And that's just how I personally feel. Let me know how you guys feel. Let me know what you guys hope to see in 2023. Let me know what you thought of this year in boxing. Let me know in the comments, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.